I shall start from the beginning, just so this is all, because for people that are not here with us today, they can watch it on demand or streaming from their own homes. So welcome everyone. Bladerunner Culture and Blue Planet Sci-Fi Film Festival present China Summit in association with Winston Baker. I'm Amy Baker, the CEO and co-founder of Winston Baker, and we've been doing these events all over the world for the past 15 years. So thank you so much for joining us, and what a pleasure it is to have many of our friends from China and Asia that have not been here in the past 3 years. So welcome back, everyone. It's my pleasure, our first session's actually via video. And it's going to be with Zhang Hong, the Secretary of the Secretariat of the China Federation Literary and Art Circles and Vice Chairman of the China Film Association. Zhang Hong has been involved in producing, financing, supervising, developing, and planning of over 50 films and TV series, many which have won numerous awards. His work includes You Are My Sunshine, Broadcade-Clad Guards, Intimate Enemies, White Deer Plain, and TV dramas such as Station Number 2 and Blooming Flowers and A Wartime Bunker. Now we can play the video from Zhang Hong.
各位电影艺术家朋友们，大家好，我是中国电影家协会副主席张红。首先，热烈祝贺本次峰会的召开。很遗憾的是，因为工作原因，我无法来到美丽的戛纳。电影节给电影人相聚、分享和发现梦想提供了很多机会。因为有了电影节，世界各地的电影从业者们才发现了、理解了彼此。中国电影艺术能够走向世界，并得到重视和认可，应该说呢，与戛纳这样的专业电影节紧密相关。从1982年《阿 Q 正传》中国电影首次入围戛纳主竞赛，到1994年《霸王别姬》赢得金棕榈大奖，2000年呢，《花样年华》又赢得了金棕榈最佳男演员等等。中国电影啊，在戛纳收获了很多的荣誉。所以呢，很高兴本届戛纳电影节有多部优秀华语电影入围，这也体现了作为中国电影人的作为和荣光。2002年啊，中国电影开始市场化运作，类型电影与工业化快速发展，诞生了很多票房的奇迹，逐渐发展出了本土电影的工业。那么在产业上也同时进行着多种国际化的合作，这些呢都让我们中国电影能够在新冠疫情之后以更加自信的方式出现在世界的面前。这次峰会呢将聚焦中国科幻电影，我感到非常的惊喜，因为在大家的认识当中啊，中国科幻电影才刚刚起步，所以戛纳对中国科幻电影的关注，我认为是非常敏锐的。科幻电影呢是国际共通的电影类型，将会使中国电影与世界电影更加紧密地连接起来，以科幻探索电影艺术创新，将推动更有价值和想象空间的国际合作。最后呢，祝此次峰会取得圆满的成功，祝朋友们工作愉快，身体健康，谢谢。
Just stayed over here on this side. Now we have a brief keynote. This will also be via video. And this is from WANG HONGWEI, chairman of Blue Planet Sci-Fi Film Festival, director and producer. Mr. Wang is the chairman of the China Film Directors Guild, chairman of the Blue Planet Sci-Fi Film Festival, and has been dedicated to curate and support generations of young filmmakers, including the most successful sci-fi film in China, The Wandering Earth 1 and 2. He's also been the judge and organizer of many renowned film festival awards, including Hong Kong International Film Festival, Shanghai International Film Festival, Beijing International Film Festival, First Youth Film Festival, and Blue Planet Science Fiction Film Festival. As one of the pioneers of local sci-fi genre content production in China, Mr. WANG HONGWEI is the driving force behind many successful young directors and New Horizon for Chinese sci-fi content development. Now, let's watch the video.
大家好，我是王宏伟。首先祝贺中国电影国际合作峰会的召开。前不久，世卫组织在实质上宣告了新冠疫情的结束，而本次戛纳电影节应当是大流行结束之后第一个重要的国际电影节。 能够在这个特殊的时间点，在这个特别的电影节上，召开这么一次以科幻为主题的国际合作峰会，具有特殊的象征意义和深厚的现实价值。很感谢主办方邀请我来跟大家做一个简短的分享。那么我可能就想谈一下我个人对中国科幻电影的一些看法。我看到本次峰会的主题词是科幻语境，中国探索，这是两个很好的点题的概念。其实中国电影人从多年前的珊瑚岛上的死光、霹雳贝贝、大气层消失这些电影开始，几十年来就一直在探索科幻语境的中国化。而这个中国化，我觉得可以再分为中国人、中国故事和中国文化这三个概念。在中国，做一部科幻电影，可能第一个难题就是如何让科幻电影中出现不违和的中国面孔和中国人。而更难的其实是让中国人自己相信这样的一部科幻电影。在10几年前，宁浩导演开始改编刘慈欣老师的《乡村教师》的时候，我们整个团队就为这个壁垒的前景而深深担忧。但是我们未曾想到，仅仅在10年之后，当《流浪地球》和《疯狂的外星人》上映的时候，这个壁垒竟然就被攻克了。那么我想，这是由于进入到21世纪中国的快速发展、国力的增强、国际地位的提升，以及观众的迭代这诸多因素造成的。对于新一代的在更加发达、更加世界化的中国成长起来的年轻观众而言，他们不仅能够相信，而且愿意相信中国人能够在一部科幻电影中成为主角，成为故事中那个强大的力量。但是是不是一部有中国人的科幻电影就是一个好的中国科幻故事呢？我觉得其中的难题是要做到让观众对中国故事的理解和对科幻故事的想象做到浑然一体。我觉得从这里开始，我们要注意的就是科幻语境必然是一个世界语境。科幻是直接植根于现代科技和现代文明的产物，也就是说，在底层逻辑上，这个现代就是世界意义的。所以片面强调科幻故事、科幻电影的国别化和本土化，本身就是违背科幻基本逻辑的。所以如果说我对本次峰会的主题词能够换一个维度来阐释的话，那就是一个好的中国科幻电影应当是以中国故事来体现世界语境，或者说是世界语境下的中国故事。所以这也就是本次峰会的意义，能够在后疫情时代让中国和世界喜欢科幻的电影人能够互相了解和支持。最后是中国文化。相对于科幻电影，我觉得这个中国文化既应该是从中国悠久的历史中来的，也更应当是中国要面向未来、面向世界的时候产生的新的文化。我们不应该做其他国家科幻电影的复制品，不应当仅仅有拿来主义。最重要的原因就是一部电影当中的情节、人物、台词、细节可能都能够平移复制，但是关于电影主题的、关于电影价值观的那些文化基因，你是很难改头换面在中国电影中体现的。 所以我们要从自己的文化中发现科幻的可能性，同时更绝不能把科幻变成另一种形式的沙文主义宣传和民族主义口号，而是要意识到这种建立在现代科学基础上的类型本身就是警示人类当中任何一种因循守旧、固步自封、夜郎自大的强大武器，是一种体现全人类命运与共的未来预言。所以我想本次峰会的意义不言自明，那就是中国科幻电影需要世界，世界科幻电影也需要中国。好，最后祝大会顺利圆满的举行，谢谢大家。
Ready for some live presentations now? Those were our opening addresses. So hopefully if you did not get a chance to follow along, it will be on demand. You can watch it later and you can follow along with what he was saying. Next up, we have a very exciting keynote on development and character of Chinese sci-fi genre. From the co-founder and curator of the Blue Planet Sci-Fi Film Festival, HELIANG, who we like to call Moses. So Moses is a producer and film festival curator, the first to launch a science fiction film festival in China, which is very, very exciting and impressive. He's also the main organizer of the 24th Shanghai International Film Festival Golden Goblet Science Fiction Forum. Moses is a producer of the science fiction short film Starry Night, The Way Back, directed by veteran director Liu Chuan, and the executive producer of the Beijing International Film Festival Samsung Cell Phone short film series. Moses, welcome to the stage.
Thanks, Amy. Thanks, Mr. Zhang Hong, Mr. Wang HONGWEI. Thank you all for coming to our summit. Now, I will share the journey of Chinese sci-fi film. But first, let's think about the theme of our summit. Reimagine China, revamp global cooperation. So, why do we need to reimagine China? Because for a long time, the global audience's impression of Chinese film mostly are winning awards, art house, and kung fu, and rich. But what is the real Chinese film market like? What is the real? So let us look at top 30 at the China's domestic box office. This is the top 30 films. So we can see among the top 30 films, there are 24 Chinese films and 6 Hollywood films. And there are 15 fantasy films, including 8 science fiction films. So what's the meaning? It shows that Chinese films are winning high recognition of local audience. And sci-fi and fantasy film is the mainstream of Chinese film consumption. This is very similar to the film market conception. consumption in North America or maybe even in the world, which is primarily domestic by Hollywood film. In China, the audience's strong interest in sci-fi. It's like the United States when the Star Wars first appeared. And in recent years, at the Shanghai International Film Festival and the other China's domestic film events, almost all the Chinese filmmakers are preparing to make sci-fi films. Most Chinese directors are talking about science fiction film or ask how to make a sci-fi film. Hereby, I'd like to point out 3 time points: 2015, 2019, and 2023. The enthusiasm of Chinese audiences for science fiction is related to the culture trends caused by introduction of popular culture, such as Hollywood film and Japanese manga, and so on, such as these movies: First Westwood, Futurewood, Alien, Transformer, Terminator, Independence Day, Avatar, Interstellar, EVA, and Ghost in the Shell. And this is the process of China accepting world sci-fi popular culture after reform and opening up. And the immense enthusiasm of Chinese film industry was coming from the year 2015, when the three-body problem written by Liu Cixin won the Hugo Award. The Hugo Award is the highest award in sci-fi literature in the world, and Liu Cixin is a famous sci-fi writer in China. So at that time, we are calling a concept Year Zero of an era of Chinese science fiction films. But when the Year Zero of an era of Chinese sci-fi film arrives, it was already 2019. In 2019, the Bladerunner, adapted from another novel of Liu Cixin, released during the Spring Festival in 2019. And in the summer, the Avengers Endgame released in China. They are the box office, so we can see that, or we can say that. After years of learning from Hollywood in industrialization and the method of storytelling and science filmmaking experience, Chinese film finally bred the Bladerunner, a Chinese sci-fi film, and won high recognition of Chinese domestic audience over the mega blockbuster of Hollywood, output in the field of the science fiction, Avengers Endgame. The success of the success of the Wandering Earth made the arrival of the year zero of an era of Chinese sci-fi film. Also in 29, another important thing about the Chinese science fiction film happened. About the Chinese sci-fi film happened. Sorry. China welcomed her first science fiction film festival, Blue Planet Film Festival, of which I'm the co-founder, I'm a character. It needed to clarify that I'm not wanting to do a sci-fi film festival because of the success of the Wandering Earth. My initial idea of creating a sci-fi film festival was as early as 2050, yes. When the three-body problem won the Hugo Award, and it sparked passion of Chinese film industry. At that time, I'm thinking over a question. In China, who can make a science fiction film? Who can film a science fiction in China? Science fiction film in China in 2015? At the end of 2015, my team and I began to try to do science fiction themed screenings and other activities, and discovered many young directors in China under their sci-fi short films. They love sci-fi and fantasy, full of imagination, dare to try, and most of them return from overseas, thinking more internationally. I believe that they just need a platform like a sci-fi film festival to exchange, share, and discover new cooperation opportunities. But we always face a problem. There are not many science fiction films in China. Why should we do a sci-fi film festival? Actually, science fiction film and science fiction festivals have a cause and effect relationship. Our is a chicken and egg problem. Fortunately, the science film, The Wandering Earth, and the science film festival, Blue Planet, both started action between 2019 and become into being in 2019. Both of them from impossible to possible. So, hereby, I remember a very great science fiction writer, Arthur Clarke. His second law said that the only way of the only way of discovering the limits of the possible is to venture a little way past them into the impossible. In recent years, the Chinese film industry has faced great difficulties, but Chinese filmmakers have shown their strong creativity in science film, the science fiction films, series, and animations, such as Moon Man and the Three Body Problem series, and the capsules and the Chinese tale. In 2023, the Bladerunner 2 released in China in the Spring Festival and creating a box office miracle once again. And from 2019 to 23, we finally arrived here and finally made the Chinese Sci-Fi Film Festival to here to the Marché du Film at Cannes to discuss and share the journey of Chinese science fiction films. The year 2019 is considered that the year zero of an era of Chinese sci-fi film. However, it doesn't mean there were no science fiction films in China before 2019, such as Winston Shanghai after 6 years in 1938, and Ballad of Ming Temperance Receiver in 1958, and Dislocation 1986, Baby of Thunderbolt 1988. So we can say that Chinese film fiction films, Chinese sci-fi films, immediately along with the start of China's modernization process. In each era, Chinese film uses science fiction to express the thought of the times and the future. And we can see that the so-called year zero of 2019 derived from the sense of self-recognition after we have accepted Hollywood's definition of science fiction films. And in China, the Bladerunner is a successful work for Chinese film to learn from Hollywood, while the Journey to the West is a successful attempt in small budget science fiction films in China, and the young directors selected into Blue Planet, making sci-fi films more and more interesting. They can naturally tell sci-fi stories in the context of international commentary, such as Greenfield and Out of Darkness. They can also allow an astronaut to travel to an ancient battlefield, to a Chinese ancient battlefield, such as Sisyphus, artificial actress. And there is the story of a boy and an alien from the Mars, filmed by a young director from Xinjiang. The film is My Mars Friend. and the story of a UFO pursuit told by a young Tibetan director. Where the end of universe? So we can see that Chinese science fiction films are showing alternative possibilities and potentials. 从这儿开始应该翻译。And I need my colleague to translate, and I want to speak it in Chinese. 就第一个是自我意识的觉醒。
So first one is awaken of self-consciousness.
就是我们认为中国科幻电影要用自己的方式理解理解科技对人类生活和人类的文明带来的影响，寻求一种既源于中国又能让全世界共鸣的科幻表达。
So Chinese science fiction films can understand the impacts of technology on human life and civilization in their own way to find a sci-fi expression that originates from China and resonates with the world.
第二个重要的点是重塑科幻认知。
The second point is about reshaping the understanding of science fiction.
科幻是在科技文明背景下讲述人和科技的关系，但是随着 AI 元宇宙等技术对人类生活带来的颠覆性的变化，我们需要重新建构科幻。
Science fiction tells the relationship between people and technology against the background of technological civilization. However, with the disruptive changes brought by the technology such as AI and metaverse to human society, science fiction needs to be reconstructed.
然后第三个点是我们要拥抱技术的创新。
The third point is we need to embrace technical innovation.
中国电影是从2002年进行市场化的改革的。那么中国电影人呢，对于创新的电影技术一直非常好奇，又敢于尝试。比如说，现在虚拟制片技术 AIGC 都成了热门的话题，这非常有利于以科幻为核心，推动全球制片技术资源的共享和整合发展。
The Chinese film industry began market reforms in 2002, and Chinese filmmakers have always been curious about and daring to try innovative technologies. Today, the virtual production technology and AIGC have become hot topics, which will be conducive to promoting the integration and development of global film production technology resources with science fiction at the core.
最后一点是，我觉得我们应该开放科幻创作的视野和心态。
Last but most importantly is we need to maintain an open attitude and perspective towards sci-fi films.
就当我们的时代和电影都面临剧烈的变化，科幻是国际共通的语言，是面对未来最好的思考和表达的方式。我们应该以科幻为契机，保持开放的心态和视野，重新建立电影的国际化合作。
So therefore, when both the era and the film industry are facing drastic changes, science fiction is a universal shared language, and the best way to think about and explore it is unknown. We should take science fiction as an opportunity, maintain an open attitude and perspective, and reconstruct international film cooperations.
所以最后，我想说一下我们关于科幻电影的一些展望。
So next, we want to talk about some future insights that we want to explore into sci-fi films.
就当人类一边在计划移民火星，一边正在准备进入虚拟的世界。
So when humanity dreams of migrants into Mars, for example, while we dive deeply into virtual realms.
这个时候，关于文明、历史、现实、意识、梦境、幻觉、虚拟，甚至人类自身，都面临着重新的定义。
So about civilization, history, and reality, some consciousness and illusions undergo a profound metaphysis.
其实这不是科幻的终结，只是现实正在融入科幻。
So it's not the end of sci-fi, it's the reality is blending into sci-fi.
现在在中国出现的科幻电影的热潮，是要打开科幻新的可能。
so the trend coming into sci-fi film in China is to open up the new possibilities of sci-fi film.
那么中国的文化不是被观看和消费的客体，也不是菜蚁链上的未知的力量。
So Chinese culture is not only the objective that will be watched and consumed, but and moreover, it's not about some unknown power that's under suspicious.
我们希望的是能够唤醒我们内心的感知，重塑认知，重构人与世界、人和科技的关系。我们希望互通互融，包罗万象。
So we hope that we can call for awakening of perception, reshape cognition, and also to reconstruct the human and the world, human technologies relationship, blend them together, and make them consistent.
最后，我们相信，来自中国的关于未来的思考和美学，将在新的科幻语境和全球化电影合作中创造出来，最后形成一种新的未来主义。
And we believe the future thoughts and the musing in China's future can create some wonderful futuristic concept under the new sci-fi catalog and the international co-production in the film industry.
以上是我关于中国科幻电影和新的国际合作的一些分享，希望科幻能为我们国际化的未来合作带来新的机遇。谢谢。
So that's the end of my speech. Thank you very much, and I hope sci-fi film can bring the world some new opportunities, and let's see the future.
Hello. Can I speak Chinese?
Yeah, sure, no problem.
你好，马老师，我想问一下，就是在中国电影市场，中国科幻电影，您觉得它在国际市场上应该如何提高它的影响力和认可度？然后在做国际电影宣发的时候，您觉得中国科幻电影应该去注重哪些方面和哪些策略呢？谢谢。
So how do you enhance the recognition of the Chinese sci-fi films in the global scale? And when you are designing the marketing strategy to develop the sci-fi films to the global market, how would you do that?
好，非常好的问题。我认为，首先呢，想要建立好国际的对于中国科幻电影的认知，是首先要建立中国科幻电影自我的认知。就像我们蓝星球的主席王宏伟老师说的。什么是中国科幻电影？什么是中国文化？你怎么在中国文化中寻找到科幻表达的更多可能？我觉得首先是建立更好的自我的认知。
So very good question, and it's quite long. So it's basically about what Mr. Wang Hongwei said in the video just now, saying that we need to have a Chinese culture starting point to make those sci-fi films. Thus, we can develop further into the global market, and we need to understand what is really that we need to concentrate and get into the sci-fi film instead of we're just mocking the entire world trend and promoting to the market, so we can bring something new to the global market.
所以呢，因为科幻是一种国际上最共通的一种语言，是科技文明背景下的一种虚构和表达，所以，关于现在人类生活状态的这种认识，关于中国人自己生活方式怎么被科技改变，这是需要中国导演意识到的。同时，在创作的时候要考虑到，它是不局限于具体的地域和文化的。
So most importantly is the Chinese director started to recognize that what we really are experiencing during the daily life about the technologies and the changes about them, so they can put them, blend into their films and then make it show on a screen. And that is quite important that we started to make those sci-fi films more local and domestic, and then started to blending into the culture and then combine with the Hollywood production.
所以我们最后在总结这个未来主义的时候，说是 New Futurism。其实我们一开始的时候想说的是东方未来主义。
So we wanted to say that it's kind of like a Oriental futurism kind of concept, instead of just a futurism concept.
对，但是呢，东方的文化以及东方的一切，在一个国际的语境里面，它是容易被误解的。他觉得刻意在强调我们身处的地域和文化上概念的位置，所以我们认为从中国出发的这种科幻的创作，应该是更有前瞻性的、更国际化的，既体现自己的特点，又能让全人类共鸣。
So currently there's lots of misunderstanding from the globe about the concept of Oriental. People understand it mostly as a territory problem instead of a culture-wise. So there's lots of things that we can explore in the future, and then we put it into the film. So we let the technology spread and let people to have a common language by watching the sci-fi films to understand more of it.
回答完了。
Yeah, that's the end of the answer.
你好。
你好。
我名字是哈维尔，我是加拿大人。I came here from Canada to produce films with China, and I have some associates. 我的朋友是中国人，但是在温哥华。And that's where I live. I live in Vancouver, so I have associates from China that we want to make science fiction films with China. So my question to you would be, how do I begin here with what you have exposed, and how do I connect with a network of producers in different parts of China, being in Canada?
他是该如何跟一些中国的制片人进行联系？他是在加拿大温哥华的一个制片人，然后呢，他希望能够跟更多的类似于制片类型的。So do you mean that you want to connect with the producers in Canada or in China?
In China, yes.
In China.
Through my producers in Canada as well.
Specifically to sci-fi films or?
Yeah, specifically the sci-fi.
Okay, no problem. 他想问就是说，怎样他才能从加拿大这样的一个 base 的环境里，去联系到更多制作 sci-fi film 的中国的制片人？
我觉得直接来联系我们蓝星球科幻电影节是一个最直接的方式。
The most direct way is to get connected with him and then attend the Blue Planet Sci-Fi Film Festival.
Oh, fantastic! Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your very interesting speech and very interesting festival. We are looking forward to attend the upcoming edition if we are able. And we would like to ask, because for us on the European side, the Chinese market is always a bit of a mystery. And we would like to ask, how can we be updated about the upcoming sci-fi films? Are there any specific platforms in China that you use to keep this information? Or maybe your sci-fi film festival is going to be taking care of that. Maybe you plan to have some catalog of upcoming projects, sci-fi projects in China. We would be very grateful to get any information on that. Thank you very much.
对，他说就是他作为一个欧洲人，非常想要了解更多就是中国的这些的 sci-fi film， 因为对于欧洲板块来说，基本上中国的这些科幻电影对他们来说还是一个非常神秘的事情。所以说他想问，就是有哪些平台他们能够尽快的得到一些正在制作或者未来马上要上线的一些 sci-fi film 的这些信息，然后他们可以去进行参考。
谢谢。那个刚才我在分享的时候呢，有一些信息可能没有全面的介绍。 首先呢，就是我们一直在说 The Wandering Earth 流浪地球。那么流浪地球是中国科幻电影的一种非常勇敢的探索和达到了非常好的这种成绩。但是中国的这个 PPT 好像没更新。Sorry, the PowerPoint is not update。就是我还谈到了，本来在那个新的 PPT 里还谈到了一个电影叫《宇宙探索编辑部》The Journey to the Rest。对，那是中国科幻电影在2023年上映的一部电影，一个很有中国特色的这种电影，也非常有意思。另外，关于中国电影、中国科幻电影现在正在制作和创作的，每年我们在11月的蓝星球科幻电影周的时候，会有一个整个的展示和分享。还有就是我们也一直想做蓝星球的放映，在欧洲，在很多中国以外国家的这种放映，我们希望能够建立起基于放映建立起这种交流和分享，让大家能够互相了解，能够找到合作的机会。
And he firstly said apologies that the PowerPoint might not be the newest version. They will be able to share the newest version to everyone here. And then in that thing, he explained one more film, which is called Journey to the West, which is a really domestic dialogue about the sci-fi film and the screenwriting over it. And it's been quite a big trend and kind of a blockbuster in some other countries as well. So that means they opened up towards the domestic topics in a global scale. And currently, the Blue Planet Sci-Fi Film Festival is running in a week scale in November every single year. So welcome to that, first of all. And it will update everything about the year ongoing sci-fi films. And also, he's looking forward to collab with more associates and screening authorities in the European countries and then see whether he can do more screenings in the European countries. So we're looking forward to it and create a platform for most sci-fi lovers and sci-fi filmmakers to collaborate and communicate with each other.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Moses, for your presentation, and thank you for creating such a wonderful platform and exciting for sci-fi in China and throughout Asia. Now, before we get to our panel conversation, which is going to be on global content, which is like global local content, we have a distinguished group of panelists that are going to talk about their perspectives from Europe and from America and from China. We're going to have a very exciting address. This will be a video, and it's an address from the award-winning director and writer of Wandering Earth, Frank Guo. The Wandering Earth has achieved a worldwide box office revenue of approximately $700 million, ranking it 5th in Chinese film history in terms of box office performance. And then Wandering Earth 2 came out, which Frank also wrote and directed. This went on to achieve worldwide box office revenue of approximately $600 million, and ranking it 10th in Chinese film history in terms of box office performance. Frank was honored as a cultural celebrity by the Propaganda Office of the Chinese Central Commission for Guiding Cultural, among many other awards. And now we get to watch this video. Enjoy.
大家好，我是电影《流浪地球》的导演郭帆，非常感谢中国电影国际合作峰会的邀请。很遗憾，因为时间的原因，无法与各位电影同行在戛纳进行交流。2019年，电影《流浪地球》的第一部也曾经在戛纳进行过放映，所以得知这次峰会能够聚焦到科幻电影，我非常欣慰，也感到与戛纳有了特别的缘分。在这儿呢，先祝福本次峰会能够顺利举办，祝福各位电影同行可以享受电影在戛纳尽情聚会。我正是因为热爱科幻电影，才最终成为了导演。高中时期，因为观看卡梅隆导演的《终结者2》，在心中埋下了一颗对科幻电影向往的种子。科幻电影给我们带来了对世界、对未来的好奇心。在我拍摄《流浪地球》系列的时候，也希望能够给观众，尤其是年轻观众带来这份感受。中国科幻电影在近几年有着快速的发展， 比方说《独行月球》《明日战记》这样的优秀科幻电影，在陆续的出现。非常感谢中国的电影观众对科幻电影的包容与支持，《流浪地球》系列也正是在观众的支持和鞭策下走到了今日。电影艺术的魅力是跨语言的，在世界是共通的。在拍摄电影《流浪地球2》的时候，除了在中国本土，我们还在美国、法国、冰岛、哥伦比亚4个国家进行了取景。也希望通过这种海外多地的拍摄，能够让我们的观众感受到不同的地域的风貌和风土人情。今年春节，《流浪地球2》也不仅在中国大陆上映，同时还在美国、加拿大、英国、爱尔兰、澳大利亚等35个国家开始发行上映。一方面呢，广大的华人观众可以在春节这样的节日走进影院，与国内的观众一同感受到春节档的节日仪式感。另一方面，也有很多外国的观众朋友走进影院，看到了《流浪地球2》，让我们可以通过大荧幕形成了跨越语言和文化的交流。看到国内外观众很多的对电影《流浪地球》的认可，这是我们非常自豪的一点。特别是对于我们的视效的进步，对于我们电影工业的进步，这些都是支持我们不断前行的动力。但是科幻电影在中国的类型化依然需要发展时间，我们还有很长的自己的路要去走，要去探索。非常感谢戛纳能够关注到中国的科幻电影，也期待有机会能够再次来到戛纳，与海外的观众进行交流。谢谢。
Do you want help? Okay, where's that? Oh, wow. Okay, thank you.
You say I best be going 'cause it's getting late, and I say we're gonna walk you home 'cause it's on the way. But the last time that we made love, you left in tears. So this time you're wondering how to leave it here, and I haven't seen you since last winter break, and I know that I broke your heart. But always such a smart one, always so intelligent. You must know that I took it hard. Oh baby, I think we both know this is the love that we won't get right. Still, if you said that you wanted, I know I always have one more try. Oh baby, I think we both know this is the love that we
Okay, I'm going to make sure our panelists are heading this way and we can get you seated on stage. Let me get out of the way, and you can all get up there on stage. Lee, you're going to sit closest to the screen. No, we want you closest to the screen because you're going to do the only one with a presentation. So it's not in order right now, but it's okay. I'm going to mix things up a little bit and take us out of order because I want Lee on the end. She'll have a presentation at some points that she can show us. Okay. Oh, okay. And you're here. We've come to our last, but not least, exciting session, and this is spearheading local contents, production and distribution. Moderating this talk is my friend, Maria Sakur. Maria is the founder of Maria Sakur Productions based in New Jersey. She's an award-winning filmmaker, producer, actor, and creator of the Amerasian comic Spear. Maria's done productions throughout the US, co-productions with Ireland and the UK. As a producer and director on her acclaimed documentary film, Lords of BSV, which won 13 awards across the world, and her Cannes Film Festival entry, Kicks, which she wrote and directed, Maria Socorro has demonstrated her outstanding talent behind the camera while simultaneously distinguishing herself as a successful actress. Now I will let Maria take this away.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. And I would just like to welcome you all today to this distinguished panel. So first, I would like to start with Li Zhu. There you go. Hello.
Hi, Maria.
Hi, Li. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sorry, I missed a question.
Hi, Li. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Oh, hi, everyone. My name is Li Zhu. I'm a film producer, mostly working between China, US, and Europe. I have a focus making international global contents with a touch from China. And I'm also a curator of Blue Planet Sci-Fi Film Festival.
Thank you. And next we have Mike Robbery. Would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Sure. So my name is Mike Gabrawi. I'm an independent producer, also with a focus on international co-productions. Have done a lot of work in Asia, but also kind of around the world using structured co-production financing.
And next, sir.
I'm Brent Emery. I'm a partner at Resonate Entertainment. Many years spent in Chinese co-productions, European co-productions, and now have a company with 2 partners focused with content on the female audience.
Would you like to go next, Cedric?
Hi everyone, I'm Cedric Beryl. I'm the director of a distribution outfit called Trinity in Asia. We specialize in releasing Asian films and mostly films from China. And we released Wandering in the UK, which is why I'm here, I guess. And but also we release, as I say, Chinese blockbusters in the UK, Europe, and also lately in North America.
Thank you. Tenten?
Hi, this is Tenten Wei. I'm with ESC Studios at Cannes. I'm the head of distribution. I work in I started my career in China 10 years ago in Jilin Television, and then I moved to the States. I started working in sales distribution, especially focusing in Asia territories, and including China, getting Chinese films out of China and getting foreign films into China. Yeah, that's me.
That's her. That's a big deal. Thank you, Tencent. So let's talk about this term global. And I'd like to start with you, Li. So, when we think of curators, we think of fine art curators. But you're a curator for the Blue Planet Science Film Festival. And many of us, when we think about film festivals and we make our films, we think about what type of film festival would it fit in. So this particular film festival focuses on sci-fi, but I want you to tell us about your vision for your festival and what you're looking for and how you curate talent for your films.
Thank you, Maria. That's a great question. For me, being a curator for a sci-fi film festival is a practical choice. Because as international producer, I always constantly looking for international bilingual talents with a global vision and also contents that could travel across the borders. So when the founder of Blue Planet approached me saying, can you help us? I said, great. I think that's a great platform. I wanted to help them to develop into a one-stop shop for talents, focusing on sci-fi fields. It can be director, writer, production, distribution, scientist. We all work together to create something different in terms of sci-fi. And second option, the reason is that sci-fi is such a global cinematic language. It's a common language that everybody can understand. And for me, I think we could build something very specific and special, utilizing my Chinese background and also the global access to the festivals and the distributors and all the helpers I can find to discover talents, good projects, and help them to make it happen. So that's why I was very devoted to helping and making this sci-fi focused film festival in China. This is the first and only one in China. I'm very proud of it, and we have been very successful, even though we're only into the 5th edition, and we already have accomplished so many screenings in both feature and short. And we actually started a new pitching session, which I can elaborate later. So that's for now. Thank you.
Yeah, please do, because we understand you get over 500,000 submissions a year, and you really do pick certain film auteurs out. So that's really commendable. My second question is really for you, Mike. You know, you had Resident Evil went on to become the second highest grossing franchise in history. Congratulations on that. You know, it's not an easy feat. So when you see trends that are emerging between gaming, movies, virtual reality, can you speak to the audience a little bit more about Sci-Fi and a franchise that just grows into this humongous world of entertainment, please?
Sure. So, I mean, I think as a filmmaker and as producers, you're always looking for kind of inspired intellectual property, IP that is going to travel. And I was never really into the gaming world. My son is a big gamer, but I was never into it. So when a friend who represented the rights for Capcom at the time brought this project to me, and I said, I don't know anything about gaming. He came over with the game, and I said, this is a movie. Even the way the very first Resident, this is many years ago, this is in the mid-90s, but you could tell that there was a movie there, and it was something really, really special. And it took many years of development to get it to a place, until Paul Anderson came and we developed it for 7 years before the first one happened, and no one expected it to become what it became. So it's gone on to be a big success. I was working with a company called Constantine at the time, and I think everything I look at is looking at how we can engineer a franchise, or how this can have an ongoing interest for audiences. And I think Sci-Fi is a great kind of entree into that, because it is an international platform. It's a genre that you can use. There's a project I'm developing now for China. It's a sci-fi project. You can use it to explore so many different areas of loss, or of personal, really intimate personal stories through the lens of science fiction. So I think it's finding these universal stories that could be told through this filter of sci-fi.
And now, Ten, I'd like to talk to you about productions in mainland China, because you really are focused on acquisitions and distribution. Can you maybe tell us a little bit more about that? For example, in 2002, I don't know if you all remember, there was a movie titled Hero, and Quentin Tarantino really fought for this film to be picked up by Miramax. And once it reached the US, it was one of the highest grossing films ever. So when we think about distribution and when we think about acquisitions, do you see another Hero in our future?
Yeah, I definitely think that I think certain content can translate, and on top of that, there is a huge Chinese audiences outside of China. Then even though right now most Chinese films, if you get theatrical release in China, theatrical release in US, you see about 6 figures. It doesn't go over 7 figures box office, but in the future, definitely, I think there's a chance, especially with Parasite or the Asian wave. In the past few years, I definitely think there will be more Chinese movies that being distributed outside of China.
I agree. And now, Brent, your resume, of course, is excellent, and you're a filmmaker and you work in China as well. Can you tell us a little bit about your process from prep all the way to post and distribution while working with Chinese productions, just kind of painting a picture about your process and strategies?
Yeah, I think for me as a producer, the biggest challenge for U.S. co-productions is finding the right content, always. When I first started, it was about 7, 8 years ago, and the thought was, we'll find scripts that are halfway there and try and engineer them into being Chinese co-productions, getting past the censorship board. The problem had been, and still is, I think, a lot of American producers don't understand the culture, don't understand the governance, and don't understand the requirements in terms of development. We as US producers have a different system of developing than even in Europe, right? Even I have a project in New Zealand, and they develop entirely differently. They just throw every draft out and start again. And so I think that for me, in terms of process, was always a beginning. The beginning of the process has to be concept that's going to work for both markets, and that's really hard to find, and also with the right partners. Again, most North American producers do not understand the Chinese market, and I think most need an education on how the development process works. Because without that, you can work literally for years on a project, and if it doesn't get approved, it's dead. You'll never recover it. So I think that's the biggest thing is U.S. partners, U.S. producers need partners in China who can educate them properly on the process, always from development. And if without that, it's very tough as a producer.
So there it is, development is king once again. Well, this brings me to you, Cedric. Can you tell us about your strategy behind the acquisition of CineAsia?
Yeah, I mean, we sort of look at, what films we think will really hit it big in China at the box office. So it's very much driven by what can become a Chinese blockbuster, and we sort of surf on that. So, because I think what's amazing about China is that, it's a country that where the box office has grown from exponentially in the last 20 years to a level now where it's almost the same as North America. In fact, during the COVID years, it was first at the global, on the global box office list, I think in 2021. So approaching $10 billion a year. And that's coming from...
Pardon me, did you say $10 billion?
Yes.
Yes.
And it's approaching from a country that 20 years ago was box office was literally hundreds of that. So this exponential growth has meant that production values have also grown accordingly. So we're now seeing Chinese films made with budgets that can rival Hollywood films, and certainly deliver in terms of special effects and sort of what you get on the screen. So I think we saw a lot of value in that, and I think there's a real gap in the market between what these films do right now at the box office outside of China and what they could do in the future.
So this brings me back to you, Lee, because when we talk about film festivals here in the U.S., we're not here in the U.S., I'm from the U.S., excuse me, but we see the Sundance Institute, we see the Tribeca Institute, and there's some ideas for developing filmmakers, ideas, and so on and so forth. I've seen so much talent that's just waiting to explode out of China. So going back to your film festival, it's not necessarily a film festival that just does exhibitions. Can you talk about how it's very important for you as a curator to choose the correct projects and to make sure that these productions are curated properly and the filmmakers get the attention they need?
Thank you, Mary. Actually, it's quite a long process because we have thousands of submissions every year from both abroad and domestic. And we have a large committee, which is like a sci-fi community. And we work with each other and doing the selection process. Every year, we will have 30 projects selected into our film festival to showcase their shorts. And starting from last year, we have a new pitching session. It's called Pre-Visualize Your Script, which means we finalize 5 projects from the submissions, and we work with one of the major virtual production studio in China, Versatile Media, and help the young directors, filmmakers to visualize their concept. Because sci-fi is a very visual art form, and it requires a lot of efforts to put together. Everybody was thinking about sci-fi, it requires a lot of budget and efforts, but with new technology and virtual production, we managed to help the filmmakers to visualize their concept and help them to connect with financiers. So I was going to show some of the clips from our last session, the edition for the 5 projects, and just take a look at what projects we have selected and what's special about them, and I can elaborate on that a little bit later. So may I have the video from Blue Planet? It's a short video, it's like 2 minutes long.
Thank you. Wow.
Thank you. And from this visual, you can see there's quite a diversity in terms of the genre or the topic. And we specifically handpicked 2 projects, one utilizing Sichuan opera as an art form incorporated into the narrative. It's not only an element, but it's organically into the storytelling, and will create some spectacle that nobody has imagined before. Can you imagine an AI Sichuan opera artist performing with a real human being? That's the story. And also we have another Tibetan young director who actually created this story against the Tibetan folklore. So it's also one of the award-winning projects. So we have a standard. We want to select projects which has a future forward-thinking concept that you are familiar with Western style. And on the other side, we also selected projects which have a Chinese focus or Chinese elements that incorporate organically into the storytelling. Hopefully it will cross the borders. That's a new try.
I think it would cross the borders, definitely. I mean, today is a prime example of everyone coming together and ignoring all of the borders and creating something great. Mike, what do you think about this? Do you think there's opportunities here for a franchise with global productions with the US, Europe, and China?
I mean, absolutely. China's still, in my purview, and we are very early on doing Chinese co-productions, the most important territory in the world. It's such, I mean, what I love about working in China, I've done a couple of films there, is that when you go, this is everywhere in the world, but I think I was most surprised when I was working in Asia, is that wherever you go, filmmakers are filmmakers. We're all storytellers. We all come from the same kind of, the same family. And I think that's what's so exciting, is that you see the Chinese market and the international community kind of rejoining after this crazy pandemic, and the future is very bright. I have at least 4 or 5 films that I'm developing either with Chinese companies or to work alongside China, whether they shoot in China or they shoot elsewhere in Asia or wherever. There's a collaboration between Chinese filmmakers, producers, actors across the board. It's still the most exciting place in the world for me.
Definitely, I can see that. Cedric, you're seeing, you've had a lot of success with Chinese films in the past several years. Congratulations on that. So generally, we have seen more crossover success of Asian content in general, right? So what do you think? Like, how do you see this trend evolving to get to the next hero?
Well, I think we're almost there with Wonders too, in a way. I think what's interesting about the sci-fi, if you speak specifically about the sci-fi genre, is that it can travel more than any other genre, really. So I think Hero showed something which was distinctively Chinese, and what they can do. And but interestingly, Zhang Yimou, director of Hero, has just done a film this year, which wasn't released by us, but which I like a lot, called Full River Red. But that film didn't travel as much as Hero did, for example. So 20 years later, that phase has kind of waned. But I see there's new types of film that China can make and could really travel. And I think animation and sci-fi are particularly strong and promising in that sense, maybe more than any other types of film. And I think the Chinese film industry is specifically geared towards making these films. So I think something like Blue Planet is so important to nurture the talent. And Wandering Earth has shown the way, because essentially they created a franchise, sci-fi franchise from nothing, really. I mean, of course, the work of Liu Chin was known around the world and very famous, but they managed to do that by themselves. And now, a lot of people have jumped onto that bandwagon, really. So the Three-Body Problem is being made in China and outside of China by Netflix and so on. So I see a lot of potential there.
Thank you. Brent, you talked about how content is king and how it starts with an idea and a script. And because Asia has touched so many parts of the world, what is your opinion about Eurasian content, Amerasian content that that can be the part of global productions. For example, we see it more in the Western world. You know, half Asian individual meets another half Asian individual. But what do you think about that content? How do you think that can cross over into really doing global productions with that type of content?
Personally, I think it starts with some of the audience, the North American audience, understanding some of the content and seeing things they like. So even on the larger sort of Pan-Asian content wave, Squid Game did, I think, wonders for North American audiences to then be open to other content from different countries. Chinese content, being able to just actually read subtitles and not get bored, it's a very uniquely American blind spot for audiences. And I think that, you know, all of it, from Parasite to you name it, it has such a huge effect on the audience being now open, North America-wise, or U.S. audiences specifically, because U.S. audiences typically speak one language, have been historically very reticent to watch programming with subtitles. And I think that just creates a new demand that the audience wants to see new content, new ideas, new actors. They want to feel like they've discovered these actors or these shows or these movies in a way that, you know, it brings them some sort of ownership. So I think all of those things add up to audience is being primed. And as we moved from a push consumer base to, you know, when you were supposed to see it, how you're supposed to see it, with whom, and a pull, the audience is always going to win. So as long as the audience starts being open to these new this content from other areas and languages they don't speak, I think we're going to see a big wave. I think we're just waiting for that next, you know, what's the Squid Game of film coming into the North American audience. And it's still kind of mind-boggling. The two biggest markets in the world have not yet really figured out a great way to collaborate. There's a lot of reasons to it, but if you can crack that, even one film like that will do a massive amount of business. So.
Tenten, I have a question for you about distribution and acquisitions. So when you're looking at content and you're looking to looking at certain platforms that you're connected to on global productions that are basically sci-fi based, what are you looking for precisely, and what are your colleagues looking for, and the companies and the platforms? What are they looking for in terms of films that are sci-fi globally based?
For Chinese content specifically, there is a specific genre of Chinese content that's focusing on the Chinese myths that has weird monsters and a lot of those. It's called WANG in China, but it's actually surprising selling super well abroad for those movies. Those are considered sci-fi, but also those are actually selling really, really well abroad. Then a lot of big blockbuster in China, like those dramas are probably you can add to that the drama films are, even though have great box office in China, maybe 800 million, 500 million.
It's hard,
and they are selling less than a lot of sci-fi, Chinese sci-fis outside of China.
It's true. Sorry, just to start from that. I think the fantasy genre works as well.
Yeah, definitely. Sci-fi fantasy.
The problem with drama is that, Chinese actors and so on, stars that are not really known outside of China, so it's very hard to sort of, even if you've got a great drama, and China does deliver some great hit films, but the film that tends to travel are the films of which you will see in Cannes here in selection, but this tends to be the smaller art house Chinese films rather than the films that really work at the box office in terms of drama. And I think that's specifically hard because the cast is not there.
Yeah, another thing about the dramas is also there's a culture difference that it's hard to travel for Western audiences. The culture in China, how the family issues and a lot of that doesn't translate as much. But the crazy monsters and all the sci-fi fantasy films that will translate so much.
Giant shark always works.
Yeah.
You know, we were having this discussion earlier, and it's something in film studies that people study earlier, Shaw Studios, when we started to look at what they did, and it was very much like Hollywood studios, and they had these beautiful films that were so well lit, the acting was impeccable, the costume design, the set design. So when we think about content, somehow or another, we think the Western world would be more open to seeing something different than your average. So Lee, to go back to this, you know, I want to talk to you about a little bit more and expanding on mentoring the young filmmakers. Like, so what is some of the processes that you do, and also the platforms? Because the idea is, if you're going to shape a film with a young filmmaker, your ultimate goal is the business side, to get it distribution and to make sure that it's on a platform, correct? So can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yes, I think everybody wants to work with the most talented directors and the most promising projects, but it's a long process, and it has to be a trust relations. So our film festival actually already built such a platform, because you can see that we have award-winning mentors and giving them master classes and training sessions and workshops, and through this process, we're gradually finding, okay, we have some of the very upcoming young directors, and we provide them with a healthy and neutral, so not biased, environment for them to blossom, because we're trying to encourage them to follow their heart, to really follow the voice in their creative development, not give them too much of instructions, because we want this kind of a raw material to inspire us. It's like a give and take process. We are professionals. We work in the industry. We know from distribution perspective and the acquisition perspective what could sell, but we still want to create something new that the audience haven't seen before. So it's a mutual process. So we actually very focused on just giving them instructions in terms of, you know, production and practical, but in terms of creative, because of sci-fi, because of fantasy, you can give them more and bigger creative space, as opposed to other type of genre in China. So I think that's a very interesting learning experience for us as a mentor at the festival, as well as for the young directors who started building these relationships with the mentors. And since the beginning of the festival, we already have 2 young directors. One is working on his very first feature film, and one finished his first feature film with a big cast. His name is Zhu Yilong. So, and this film was soon to released in June next month. So we can see our fruit and accomplishment, just see we're really finding very talented directors through our platforms.
That's excellent. I was going to get into the conversation about tax incentives and regional funds and pre-sales and, you know, even product placement. But I think I would just like to hear from everyone here regarding all of those facts. Just what is your experience? Like, what are some of the challenges that you had to overcome filming in another country or doing a global production? I've done some myself, and I know it could be, you know, who do you go to? Who can you trust? How do you meet people? So, because all of you have had such extensive experience, could you share with our audience a little bit about what that is like doing a global production with China?
You're the most recent, I think, right? So,
I mean, I think the most important thing is, for me, just as far as global incentives and global structures, you want to follow the story and what is organic for the story. So whether it's something that should be shot in China or in Thailand or in Colombia, wherever it makes sense, everywhere in the world has so many places have subsidies and support for filmmakers. I think the single most important decision you make when doing an international show is identifying the right partner, and that will basically define what your experience will be for the next 2 or 3 years of your life. And it's critical that you know, whenever you're looking to do a film somewhere, you pick up a phone and you call, you find out what they've done, you call the producers from those movies, you speak to the local bond companies, you speak to filmmakers in the region. That's for everywhere I've worked, and the times that I've done that and thoroughly vetted and partnered with the right producing partners, the projects have gone really, really well. If I'm going on a wing and a prayer because it's somewhere I haven't shot before, or a situation I don't know, it can be really challenging and difficult because you're on their turf, you're in their jurisdiction, you're not in your own, so you're at their mercy a lot of the time. So that's just do your homework. It takes 5 minutes to call somebody. It's such a small community, the filmmaking community in the global sense, that invariably when you look at other films that your partners have done, you'll know someone connected to it, and through a game of telephone, you'll get to the producers and can ask the right people the right questions.
I mean, I think for me, part of the, obviously, yes, figuring out what's the best location for your movie, that dictates kind of everything. But again, from an American producer perspective, we're often used to just crawling across town or the world and saying, hey, we've got this project, it sounds like it might fit your needs, and we can do a transaction, and we have an alignment of business interests, and through that process, if we become friends and trusted relationships, that's fine. And I think a lot of American producers do not understand that that's pretty much the inverse in China, where you want to come in, spend a lot of time with people, you get to know people, you trust them, and it's not going to happen overnight. And I think a lot of American producers just see it as a massive market and a money grab, and we're going to come in there with a track record and we're going to make these movies. It does not happen that way. And I think American producers have their patience and their expectations are not aligned with the market. And they have to understand, you have to go there, you have to meet people on their terms, you have to understand that, we queue in a single file line, and a lot of Chinese people queue in a big, massive line. And the differences are so large once you start getting into development again. You just have to understand those relationships take time to build to find the right partners. In my experience, you probably come at it from a different point of view, but it does take a lot more time than I think Western and American producers specifically are used to investing to find a partner to begin with.
Cedric, I would like you to expand on this, on Asian productions that are global, from prep all the way to distribution, because you've been involved with quite a bit of that. What is your prep time like? What are your thoughts on everything from prep all the way to post when you're setting up a production?
Well, that's one of the bane of my life, because our prep time is nil. So we get a movie, we have to release it in 3 or 4 weeks.
Did you say 3 to 4 weeks?
Yeah, that can be as tight as it gets. Yeah, I mean that's extreme, but it does happen. Yeah, so even sometimes we're aware of the film, of course, and we're tracking the film, but the conversation about international distribution doesn't happen very late. Sometimes it even doesn't happen before the film is released in China, and then it's like, okay, so we just released it in China, it's worked, everything's good. Now what do we do about the rest of the world? And I think it's because it's so new, and and there's no history really of distribution on that scale in China. Sure, there was the fifth and sixth generation filmmakers film that went to a festival and were seen and blah blah blah, and then distributed the old way. But that kind of day and date distribution that we do, or releasing the film as soon as we can after its initial release in China, to be part of the conversation, to be part of the marketing in a way that's going on. It's very much just an afterthought yet still, and I think that's what my sort of life ambition is to be able to change that. And US studios have been vertically aligned for 100 years, so they know how. Well, not 100 years, but 80 years. They know how. Exactly what to do. They know now already, when the film is going to be released in 2025, on what date, and what they're going to do. In China, you don't have that, and I think that the Europe side is an ecosystem about distribution as well, with pre-sales and so forth. And I think for us, it's very important to be part of the conversation earlier, and I think that's what is missing, if you want, in our lives. So to give the film the best chance it can have internationally, the conversation about distribution needs to start earlier, about international distribution.
I see you nodding, Ten. So do you think that structure is very important? Do you think creating a proper plan for the film would help these films get on platforms internationally much sooner?
I think we're not there yet. The reason that the window is so tight is because they don't schedule the Chinese release until the last minute. And the people that's the international district, because China is such a big market that we all know that it's the same market as the U.S., as big as the U.S. market. And most of the Chinese films are expecting to get recouped from just the Chinese market. They're not even thinking about any international market at all. And then that's why the most important thing is to get the release in China. There are piracies everywhere, so they want to keep it as confidential as possible before it's released. That's why they are not thinking about, because for international distribution, you have to show the film. You have to get screeners and screenings.
And I just want to add, we rarely see a film before we actually release it, or certainly before we sign the deal.
Wow. You rarely see it, meaning that do you see a sizzle, a trailer?
Yeah. At best, we like see a few scenes, maybe a teaser. That's it.
Yeah, that happens a lot in international distribution because I wrap so many Chinese films, and on top of that, the people that's doing international distribution of Chinese films are not as incentive to do that because they're not taking a huge percentage. Because for other for U.S. films, for international sales, you get 20%, 30%, but for Chinese, a lot of it's just 10%, 15%, and you don't get any market expenses. None of that. So the people in the middle to push that. The sales pushing international distribution are less incentive to do that. And on top of that, they have to do a lot of work on getting the screeners and getting the schedule and everything, getting the materials. That's the reason. So I think when I say this, we're not in the right timing because the international distribution is not bringing. It's not like 30% of the profit yet. If we're there, then there's more people gonna jump on it and to have a more of a system for Chinese films distribution internationally.
Yeah, just to give you a live example. So Wanderers 2, which in the UK did very well. That was the best performing Chinese language film at the box office for 15 years. Did $1 million in the UK. $5 million in the US, $500 million in China. So the gap is still immense. Yeah.
So that's the thing. When you think about the numbers, 10% of something like that isn't so bad now, is it? But
when I said 10%, it's the 10% for the agents. It's not the market. The market is
exactly.
1%.
So it's international sales, yeah.
Yeah.
I see. Okay. So then when you think about what you're doing at Blue Planet, Lee, and you're shaping a film and you're shaping a script, what about the business plan? Are you also getting those filmmakers or that particular production set for a business plan that will actually be set up for success, which I'm sure you are, but I would just like to understand how that works.
Film Festival, we're a non-profit organization, but from my producer's perspective, in terms of global collaboration, and that's why we're here to show people the future wonderland of sci-fi and fantasy genre. It's booming in China and getting a lot of recognition. For example, creatively, we have more space to work with international talents. And I am currently working on China-UK co-production. So it's a fantasy piece, and we managed to work with British writer and Chinese writer, and Chinese and UK co-directing. So we are experimenting something new with this genre, and so far it's kind of successful and satisfying. And on the other hand, from the market perspective, we are working with Chinese #1 young generation streaming platform. It's called Bilibili.com. This is
did you just say Bilibili.com?
Yes.
Okay.
It is a streaming platform, and which has over 3 billion monthly active users. And these users are very young. They are like Generation Z. So from their perspective, and they are have a very keen eye on the young audiences, what they like, what they want to watch, what they want to see. And just because of the data, the big data, they produced a series of sci-fi shorts, 6 episodes, and each episode have 30 minutes. And it's utilizing their database to see what cast is popular among the young audiences, and what topic and what story would be interesting, intriguing. So I'm wondering, with the audiences here, would you be intrigued to see what's really interesting in the young generation audience from China? Okay, so I can show a little bit, teaser of this series. It's called Future Handbook series.
看到了什么？你在想什么？
问题不会再有答案。这里的一切都可以重来。一个时代过去了。
It's wonderful.
Thank you so much. I hope this answered your question in terms of if we have a business plan. Actually, this is our underlying business plan with all the shorts we have creating every single year with the young upcoming directors. We could make output this kind of a series with short films every year. And as you can tell from the stories or from the visuals, there's a big variety as well. You can see very highly westernized style story, as well as some Chinese very traditional elements. And there's a stand-up comedy type robot, and doing this kind of tricks that only Chinese can understand. It's called 相声. It's a very traditional art form, but it's organically integrated into the story. Very intriguing. I hope I can show you the full short, but with limited time, I hope we can distribute this type of contents to the international market. So that's why we're here presenting this kind of concept and a business plan. And hopefully we can find in our young audience, young directors and filmmakers, their global audiences.
Can I ask you, how old is that filmmaker? That do you know how old he or she is?
Most of them are post 95, so meaning that they are really very young filmmakers because they have a very keen sense of what's intriguing, like AI and metaverse, how it's reshaping our lives. So I think it will be intriguing for us as well.
It's really beautiful because you see so many modern concepts that are involved in this type of and like this Sino-Asian type of space, and also the technology is there. You know, everybody has a different type of quality when it comes to filmmaking, but to put it all together like that, I have full confidence in you, and I'm sure our audience does too, that you can make absolutely beautiful, timeless films that are part of franchises for sure.
Thank you. Hope so.
So when we think about genres and different cross genres, do you all, and you can I'll ask each of you this question, and I'll start with you, 1010, about sci-fi. Is sci-fi the future of filmmaking?
Personally, my favorite genre is sci-fi and fantasy. So I do think, especially that she mentioned it, that with the production cost is going down, and I think there's more and more sci-fi fantasy films going to come out, and then it's definitely going to have a bloom in the next few years.
How about you, Cedric?
Yeah, same. I mean, I think what we said before, yeah, you know, sci-fi in a way has always been part of filmmaking, you know, ever since the trip to the moon, and it still is. It's just that now you can see it coming from various places, really. And that's what is exciting about it.
Brent?
Yeah, I think for co-productions between the U.S. and China specifically, it's probably the easiest entry point. I still am a bit of a glutton. I still want to find a comedy. which is a lot harder to do. Jokes are different, everything's different. But yeah, I think it's a really great entry point for, especially if you're starting in your first co-production, for sure.
Mike?
I mean, I think the advances, in a way, the pandemic was so, it had such a profound impact in the way that we even approach filmmaking that it accelerated collaboration and kind of remote working workflows. So I think virtual production is going to be revolutionary going forward. I think, you know, the films I'm doing now, most of them, the editors are not in the same room as the director or the producers, and everything is done, you know, virtually, or not virtually, but kind of digitally and shared. So I think that kind of advance is only going to make collaboration easier and open up more opportunities for producers to work together across the world. So I think it's the most exciting time.
Thank you. And Lee?
I think I have speak too much. So I do believe that it will open doors to future collaboration, because the reason why we're here making this summit is we want to open the doors and discussions and inspire the, you know, people who are really have a heart, passion for filmmaking across the borders, and create some new content for the audiences, be it theatrical or streaming platforms. I think right now in China there's a booming, increasing consumption of contents and new contents as well. So that's why I think sci-fi, fantasy would definitely open more doors.
And you can jump in when you like, but could you let our audience know about what's trending right now in sci-fi with global productions? I know there are a myriad number of things, but if there's anything that really is specific or something that maybe we don't know about or can learn about, please let the audience know.
That would be you.
You're the expert, right?
I think I have speak too much. So
you are the expert.
New trending for global collaboration. I think I would encourage everybody who's here, young filmmakers, be courageous and really stick to what you believe, and that will have power to touch other people, to relate to your audiences. That's the most important thing. This is also what I've learned when I was mentoring our directors at the festival. You know, it just, people need new things, need to be inspired, and has a desire to exchange ideas. So always be true to yourself, and you will find your audiences.
Anyone else?
I would say that if there's, I mean, that's, I can't follow that up because I think that's beautifully said. But I would say that the way AI is going to change the world, and if there's a trend that I'm seeing in all the scripts that I was reading at Asbury Park and that a couple that I'm developing, AI has become fully baked into how we perceive the world, how the exploration of how AI is going to change us as a species is, I think, really interesting, and storytellers are starting to get into that exploration. I think that's really, if there's like a trend, that's the one that everybody's talking about right now, between AI and ChatGPT, you know, like all the you know, all those, the kind of evolution of that, I think is going to be really interesting in the next 10 years.
Yeah, I have to agree. And I think, you know, social media does have a big influence, you know, outsized influence in terms of, especially the pandemic, where we could see people from all over the world not having to rely on movies being imported or exported. And I think that you find a lot of different trending concepts through social media for younger audiences specifically that can be adapted into and sit in the sci-fi or fantasy realm, because it's not real, right? So it's much more difficult to sort of legislate that doesn't exist, so you can't do that, or you can do that. I think for me, that's been the biggest thing, is seeing a lot of these trends, you know, from TikTok to Instagram to whatever, obviously Weibo and beyond. I'm finding a lot of things there that we're looking at content-wise.
Cedric?
Well, if we talk about, you know, the sci-fi genre, I think one interesting thing about sci-fi is that it lends very well itself to the screen, the big screen, because people want to be, people still go to watch entertainment on screen and films on screen want to be surprised, dazzled, and I think sci-fi can really deliver that. So it's one of this genre where it makes total sense to go and sit at the cinema. And I think if there's one place that can save the cinema screen, it's probably that.
Thank you. Tenten.
Yeah, I think one of the trend that first attached to sci-fi fantasy, the biggest IP in the world is always sci-fi fantasy that makes most money. And then one of the trend that I noticed is that the content is shifting from, because right now we have a film and then it's the same character, same story, but in the future with AI they might change the actor's face and they might change the voice, and it depends on person's preferences, depends on the viewer's preferences might change that. So I think there's definitely a shift on that side, because even the apps that they're trying to grab your attention, and any app, no matter social media or any kind of app, that they're trying to grab more people's attention. And with the content, with film and TV, I think there will be that adding to the content as well. That for the film and TV, they will try to grab people's attention based on like who you are, what kind of content you like to watch. They will, one film might release different, with different versions to different people.
Different versions to different people. It's interesting. Is there something that you are working on currently that is exploring that?
Well, right now we're working on that because we're working on a lot of international language. We have Chinese films, Japanese films, Korean films, and then we're working on with AI to translate it in different languages automatically. So when you watch it, that you don't need to watch the subtitles. It's just you can see that in your language. But I think in the future, with the technology, even like in the near future, probably you can see different faces with your content.
See yourself.
Right. Yeah, you can see yourself.
That's pretty interesting, exciting, and terrifying at the same time. Do we have time to open this up to the audience? Does anybody have any questions for the panel? Should we give him a microphone? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, a question for Lee. You mentioned that UK co-production you were working on, and if you could expand on the hiring foreign screenwriters for Chinese production. I know this has been a trend, especially for sci-fi movies, because some of Chinese producers think there's not enough talent to write sci-fi in China, so they want to hire US screenwriters. And if you have experience with that, or the other producers, difficulties that you've had co-writing between a US or European screenwriters and Chinese screenwriters, or the whole process. Thank you.
I'm always support the idea of authentic and organic co-production, just because it's very project specific. The UK-China co-production I'm working on is about a translation of Shakespeare. So organically, the language is having Chinese and having English. So we have British writer writing with Chinese writer for different parts of the story. So when it's translated into sci-fi, it also depends on what kind of sci-fi story you want to tell about, because we have different expectations of sci-fi films or sci-fi stories. If it's going to be one of those Chinese new sci-fi film stories, definitely we're going to hire Chinese writers to really have a localized contents. But if we want to, have a more global and more, towards the westernized side of a story, definitely we'll work with Western writers, which have more exposure to, the traditional sci-fi filmmaking techniques. So to answer your question, it really depends what kind of story, and it has to be authentic. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
Hi, I'm from British Columbia, and I'm just curious in regard to film partnerships with the U.S. and China, if you've had more success with filmmakers collaborations from Vancouver area doing, considering it's a film hub, and that the Asian population is quite high, and that Asian films might be more accepted and promoted within BC. I'm just wondering if those partnerships have been successful. We have our own Asian Film Festival there, so I'm just curious if you guys have any experience in that.
I actually did a Canadian-French-Chinese co-production many years ago, and I would say that Canada specifically, more than the U.S., has a longer and more robust history of kind of collaboration with China. So there's a ton of, and I think historically there's such a huge Chinese population that it's a great gateway from kind of North America into China, and it was a great experience. And you can, on that film, we did some post in France, most of the post in Canada. It was based out of Quebec, so it was a Montreal-based a Montreal producing partner, but we shot the film entirely in China.
And so that was my question around the, kind of a gateway into wider, building wider audiences within North America. But I also wondered if promoting collaboration between Chinese and U.S. or Canadian composers for score or something where, the music's recognizable by these names, and if that might draw some audiences, if that's ever considered within your budgets for that kind of film.
I guess this goes back to the global structure of it all. How do you cast? How do you hire your crew? What are the criteria? Are there any, or is it starting, I guess, for you, Lee, going through the film festival, or for the rest of the panel, perhaps finding the best talent to include in your project? So what would it be like the structure? Is that basically what you're trying to say? Because
Well, I know that budget-wise, music's often looked at last in film projects. It's just trying to put that music in. But I just thought collaboration between Chinese and North American artists might also be another way to kind of gain audiences and gain interest in those projects if there's some recognizable scores.
I can add on to that. So for my previous productions, most of our music scored by foreign artists. So actually, if you consider all the rebates and incentives, music is actually considered one of the key hire to qualify you for those incentives. I'm currently working on the China-Hungary co-production, and definitely music will be part of the structure. Yeah.
anyone else? Yes. Oh, yes, I thought you had a question. Yeah. Anybody else?
Hi, I'm from Vancouver as well. We'll talk later. In Vancouver, I'm making a science fiction movie with Versatile Media. In fact, they're opening in Burnaby, and we're one of the first productions that is going to be working with them. And so this is very exciting to see you here and hear about this. Now, in terms of co-production, which is the reason I'm here and the reason you're here as well, and it's searching partnership, which seems to be the key element that I am gathering from this, finding the right partners for this. And a movie in development seems to be also the right place to be looking for this so that it can be shaped for the market, right? So I think the question I am having really would be, which I already asked earlier about finding a partner in China, is the structure that we're creating in Canada is based a lot with telefilm, which is federal financing, and there are requirements and there's limitations, and I'm aware of them, and I want to know how to expand beyond that without clipping my wings, if you know what I'm trying to say here.
Yeah, I mean, I think that every country, Canada has treaties with everyone. More than any other country, Canada has treaties. So it's studying that treaty and seeing what the requirements are. I think that you shouldn't see it as a limitation. You should see it as an opportunity. Going back to the composer, working with a Chinese composer, they all have like kind of point systems or structures whereby you have to collaborate. I think the pitfalls are when you start doing, like we did a 3-party co-production, it becomes this potential kind of international stew, and you want to make sure you still maintain integrity to the story and to the voice of what you're trying to say, rather than chasing subsidies or chasing financing that could potentially undermine the integrity of your project.
I think that's very important because a lot of, going back to what you were saying, Brent, a lot of producers in the US are very limited. We're used to working in the UK, and we can make a film in the UK as long as it has something to do with the culture and there's a tax incentive there. We could be all from America or France or wherever. Perhaps, I guess, maybe if somebody could give the audience an idea of where we can point them to read on the tax incentives, on the regional benefits. Is there somewhere that maybe we can point them to on the web?
I mean, there's actually a French producer that created a co-production app, and I can't remember the name of it, but it basically showed you, it was like a sliding scale of who has treaties with who. It really is, it's about like, where does your story make sense? And then go explore those. If I'm doing a movie right now that's set in Cancun, well, I can go off the top of my head, I shot in Colombia, works in Puerto Rico, works in the Canary Islands, works in the Dominican Republic. It's set on a beach resort. You can go to every one of those places, has a website. You can just go see what the incentives are, how they calculate it, and get a kind of back of the envelope view as to what the benefit is of shooting in this jurisdiction. So I think you let your story lead you to the jurisdiction, and almost all of them have some sort of support for filmmaking, whether it be tax credits in the United States or international co-production structures, depending on the talent you're working with. But it's really, the internet is your friend.
And International Village, since you're here today.
Yeah. The film commissions are also great to point you in the right direction too.
Do we have any other questions? No? Well, I'm definitely going to China next. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Maria, and panelists, esteemed panelists, and thank you all for joining us here. And a special thank you to our partners here who made this happen. Of course, we had Moses up there, but we want to say to Bladerunner Cultural, to Blue. I'm sorry, just mixed up my words. Tali, you can all get up and start. We want to take your pictures, but. Thank you to everyone that's joined us. And Blue Planet Science Fiction Film Festival, please check it out. Go online, look at the programming they have and the wonderful mentorship that's being done over there. And yeah, would you like to say anything else to say goodbye? Or Moses, do you want to say goodbye? Thank you to everyone. Okay, well, I guess that's it. We'll see you. Thank you.